Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Saturday night. Hope you're well, enjoying the weekend. You know, I saw a video this morning by another YouTuber who was cheesed off, to be quite honest with you. And when I listened to what they had to say, I thought, you know what, I'm cheesed off as well, but maybe for slightly different reasons than you are. And it's really the setup here in this country that's been allowed to happen. You know, we all complain about all of these people coming in. We all complain about bad things happening in our streets, and we all complain about how hard done by we all feel by those in power. We can complain all we like. That's true, but does it really solve anything? I don't think it does at the end of the day. And it got me to thinking a long time ago, there must be practical solutions to all of these problems in law, in history, in the part, whatever it happens to be, that can cure all of our problems. And it got me to reading, it got me to learning, and it got me to studying, and it got me to talking. And I feel more confident now that if more people learn, understand and appreciate what's going on, we stand more of a chance. You see, a lot of people act on emotion. A lot of people act on gut instinct, and especially when they're preconceived ideas that they've carried along with them for a great number of years, they're suddenly told they're no good or something's not quite right. They get all defensive and call people names, say wrong, 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 and don't listen to facts. But what I want to do in this video is put some of the facts across to you and explain a little about how I feel about things. And by all means, leave it in the comments, anything you have. Now, what I want to do, just to set the scene, is play a couple of videos from the Labour Party conference, which you've seen previously, and I do apologise if it makes you sick again, but it's very important that we start from somewhere. Here's the first one.
This was the inheritance that the Conservatives left behind for us, and their current irrelevance is the price that they have paid. So it now falls to us to rise to this challenge. If we do not, our vision of an open, tolerant and generous country will wither. And where we fail, others will succeed. Working class communities will turn away from us, the party that for over 100 years has been their party, and seek solace in the false promises of Farage. They will turn towards something smaller, something narrower, something less welcoming, and the division within this country will grow. So the challenge we now face is this: not just to win the next election, but to keep the country together and to fight for our belief in a greater Britain, not a littler England.
Now, what really pissed me off about her statement was what she said right at the end, a littler England. Now, that to me came across as a direct attack on England, because if you look at the entire geographical makeup of the British Isles, most of us are in England, you know, the highest population density. And if you look at the census, I think it's from 2011, we had a situation where more people than ever actually identified themselves as English-only nationality. Whenever you talk about the union, whenever you talk about we're better off together, which is a phrase in itself, people get really defensive, saying we can't split, we're better off together and all the rest of it. No one is suggesting that. You know, you have England, you have Wales, you have Scotland, you have Northern Ireland, you have the Channel Islands. We are a big unit of different countries together in, you know, that one common belief that we all just want to live our lives peacefully. We all want to protect our children. We all want to raise families. And what the real issue is for me is a British government that, for all intensive purposes, and you can see by her dig at littler England, is going into full-on self-preservation mode. They are very worried because they know that it's coming to the point, like any badly run business, that people are not happy anymore, and you're getting to crunch point, and what they're coming out and doing is jumping and yelling at all and sundry and blaming everybody but themselves. You know, Labour is the current incumbent of this, but this goes back generations. It's all the British state leading up to this point. So whenever I criticise the British, what I'm criticising is the union that is run or governed by that British state. You know, the English have had any autonomy taken away from them. And, you know, I've spoken about regionalisation before. Scotland devolution, Wales devolution, all that. It's a disaster, absolute disaster. It's all wrong. And, you know, let's have a look at what Starmer said at the end of his speech.
And conference. If you say or imply that people cannot be English or British because of the colour of their skin, that mixed heritage families owe you an explanation, that people who've lived here for generations, raised their children here, built their lives here, working in our schools, our hospitals, running businesses, are our neighbours. If you say they should now be deported, then mark my words, we will fight you with everything we have, because you are the enemy of national renewal.
So you're the enemy of national renewal. I think Paz was right. He does sound like a Dalek, doesn't he? Anyway, the enemy of national renewal. So what the Prime Minister is basically saying there is, if you don't agree with our policy, if you don't agree with what we are saying is going to happen, then you are the enemy and we will deal with you. And the two videos together do seem like a declaration of war against the population. That's the way it comes across, and by any measure, it's unacceptable. Now let's turn to the posts that I put on today, shall we? Let's have a look at the first one. The problems we have in this country have not been helped by a growing number of people in positions of power that quite simply should never have been elected. A very simple solution exists to this problem. We get a mass clear out, and those who want to keep the union can do that as well. What I would like you all to do is read the Act of Settlement 1701, and then read the British Nationality Act 1948, Schedule 4. That's very important. Educate yourself on the constitutional treason that has been committed without our say, and help to change it. Now, the British Nationality Act 1948, somebody did a bit of research earlier and told me that that act went through without division. So none of us asked for it. Well, what the British Nationality Act does on the cover, it reorganises the Commonwealth and the British Isles and everything in the wake of World War II. That's the excuse. But if you have a look at the Acts of Settlement, there's a very, very telling line in there, and you can find this for yourself. I'm not going to show you because it's important you go and learn. You find out for yourself. And it says that if you were not born of English parents, you can't hold any office of state. MP, Privy Council, House of Lords, police officer, councillor, mayor, the list goes on. Originally, it was put in place to protect us against interference from the Dutch, but the same principle applies. In 1948, with the British Nationality Act, which was brought in by an Attlee-led Labour government, that repealed that whole section from that act. Boom, gone. So then you end up with a situation where eligibility for being an MP, for example, suddenly expands to the entire Commonwealth. So you end up with people in positions of authority and people in positions of power that bring their own preconceived ideas with them, their own intolerances for certain things with them, their own beliefs with them, which are completely detrimental to England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. And in my opinion, that is why you're seeing what you were seeing on the streets of our great nation. And then you get reactions like what I played you with Starmer, the last 30 seconds of the speech. If you say or do anything, blah, 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 we will come for you with everything we have. You see the problem? So by dealing with the British Nationality Act 1948, what you will end up with is a position where we will all be English, we will all be Scottish, we will all be Welsh, we will all be Irish, Northern Irish to get it right. The union will still be there, but we get our nationalities back. If you want to call yourself British because you live in the British Isles, if that's what you want to do, at the end of the day, self-determination is very important, but that document forces that nationality on us where it should not. You know, under United Nations rules, we have the right to self-determination. Again, I can show you that, another slide of that, if anybody wants to see it. That right of self-determination is taken away from us with that act. It's no good, and it's caused so many other problems. This is where people need to do the research. They need to read. What you need to understand, very important you understand, I don't say anything unless I can back it up with facts, a piece of paper, a screen dump, or anything like that. Very, very important. This brings us on to the next one. I want to go on record and say I have zero faith in the British Union whatsoever. A lot of the problems we have exist because of British politicians trying to save a system that's kept them in clover for decades. This stops, and it stops now. That first paragraph was actually out of frustration, but I stand by it. Everyone, and I mean everyone, needs to realise we're not British. It's a complete falsehood forced on us since 1948. Wake up! That's with reference to the aforementioned British Nationality Act. That includes political parties that want to do the right thing. They need to do the right thing in the right way. The right people need to come together at the right time and the right place. We need to come together as the people of the British Isles. That is English, Scottish, Welsh, and Irish, for that is what we are. We need to fly our flags, shout our national pride from the rooftops, and say to those who wish to control us, stop. It's never over until it's over. Make sure that time never comes. Thank you for your attention in this matter. Now, what I mean by it's never over till it's over is don't give up. Many people give up. Many people say, don't talk about this anymore. You know, if you're like that, it's easy to be like that. It really is. Then it is over. And it can't be over. They win. Now, where I refer to the British state, you know, the British Union or the Union of Scotland and England, where it all started, it goes back as far as 1706, 1707 with the Acts of Union. And then Ireland joined in, I think it was 1800, something like that. England is over 1,000 years old. So there's a lot of history, a lot of tradition there. Scotland, you know, is aged more than the Acts of Union, and by God, so is Wales. So we all have our own individual cultures, our own individual ways, and our own individual ways of doing things. And what's really happening, what's really going on is that right to self-determination, that right to celebrate our own cultures and our own destinies is being steadily eroded by, I don't know whether you want to call it the deep state, you want to call it anything else. And if we allow it to continue, everything will be gone and lost forever. That's what frustrates me. But people have been brought up to believe we are British. People have been brought up to believe, you know, we're better off together. If you look at the European Union, that's a series of different countries in a political union. If you look at Russia, or, well, look at the USSR. By the way, better off together is actually a communist phrase that's been implanted into your head since you were very young. the USSR split up, and what do you end up with? Russians. So we can all exist. We can all be together as that block, that country. But in my opinion, and it's becoming even more apparent, those in power, those in charge of this current United Kingdom, this current union of countries in its setup right now, are leading us down a path which will destroy those aforementioned countries that we all hold so dear. You know, you look at Advance. I support Advance, and the reason I support Advance is because they represent a platform with financial backing, with people that want to do the right thing, can get in there, clear house, and try and attempt to reset everything. But the big problem here, and it's not Advance specifically, it's any party that wants to do the right thing. They're trying to get into a system that pre-exists, that they think they can just pick up and carry on. And there are very large problems with this system that need to be addressed. And I've not heard one single political party, not one single politician recognize and identify the fact that these problems exist. And until they identify it, until they say it, then it doesn't matter who's in charge. These problems are going to carry on, and we're never going to get anywhere. Rupert Lowe is the one that has come the closest to actually saying the right things. He's talked of England, he's talked of the Bill of Rights, he's talked about the rights of the individual countries. In fact, I want to show you something that's very important, and again, that you understand this. Let's find this tweet. There we go. Operation Raise the Colours continues in Great Yarmouth. My latest donation to a very worthy cause in the constituency. Flags. Anything you notice about them? This is from Rupert Lowe. St George crosses. Not a single Union flag. So Rupert Lowe is starting to get it, I think. I want to show you this picture. Again, I've shown you this before. This is the regionalisation of England. And you can see there's 9 regions there. England isn't regions. England is counties and shires. Now, if they allow this situation to happen, what you will get is that we will end up being moved back into the European Union. We will all have one system of law planted over us. That's us, the European Union, as well. You will lose all your common law rights and everything else. They can then call themselves a country in the true sense of the word. And we will lose it all. Scotland, they've already had a go at. Wales, they've already had a go at. Northern Ireland. And look at the division they've caused between Northern Ireland and the rest of us. So if we allow these external influences to affect everything, we've got big problems. Fundamentally, whoever's going to go in, whoever's going to change things, really has to start saying what they're going to change. They have to start identifying big changes. You know, behind the scenes, something you don't know about. I've been talking to a couple of prominent people and trying to say to them, this is the law of the land. This can't happen because of this. That can't happen because of that. Believe me, I've been trying, and I will keep trying until I'm blue in the face. Everybody has to learn. Everybody has to understand what is going on. Now, I said earlier on, I will never say anything unless it's backed up with fact. So I want to show you this. Talk about unions and countries. This is Halsbury's Laws of England, Volume 8, and it covers compulsory acquisition of land, conflict of laws, and constitutional law. Now, Halsbury's Laws of England are very valid. They cover several volumes, and if you want to get your own copies, they're out there. And a full set costs, I think it's either 7 or 10 grand, something like that, but you can buy the individual books. The one on constitutional law tells you everything you want to know about all the different subjects, including the Bill of Rights. Now, what's very important, if I get the right page, it's this one here. Okay. Now, this again is from Halsbury's Laws of England. It is page 307, paragraph 403, meaning of country. And again, this is English law. I'm not making this up. This is actual English law. A state, in the sense of public international law, may or may not coincide with a country in the sense of the conflict of laws. Unitary states like France, Italy, and New Zealand are countries in the sense because the law is the same throughout the state. The law is the same throughout the state. Remember that. It's very important. On the other hand, England, Scotland, and Northern Ireland, each of the Australian and American states and each Canadian province is a country in the sense of conflict of laws, because each has a separate legal system. And again, that's very important. Conflict of laws. Scotland has a different legal system to England, Wales, and Northern Ireland. So from that, in that law book, how can Great Britain, how can the United Kingdom be classed as a country? It says it quite clearly there. We have a different system of law. It continues. Because each has a separate legal system, although each of the states, each of them is a state known as public international law. However, for some purposes, larger units than these may constitute countries. Thus, the United Kingdom is one country for the purposes of the law of bills of exchange. So the United Kingdom is called a country for the purposes of the bills of exchange. Great Britain is one country for most purposes for the law of companies, which is corporate law and the adoption of children. Australia is one country for the purposes of laws of matrimonial courses, basically if you want to get divorced. And Canada is one country for the purposes of the law of divorce. There you go. On the other hand, Wales is not a country because its system of law is the same as that of England. You've got general definitions here as well under 404. Throughout this title, England includes the Principality of Wales, the town of Berwick-on-Tweed. Great Britain means England, including Wales and Scotland. The United Kingdom means Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and the British Isles means the United Kingdom, the Channel Islands, and the Isle of Man. So the United Kingdom is a country, but for specific areas, you know, it says it there in English law in black and white. So when I say United Kingdom's not a country, United Kingdom is a unitary state, but classed as a country for the purposes of. England is a country, Scotland is a country. United States has a very similar issue as one state out of the whole continent of, North America that uses a different law system. So, a very similar problem exists over there. And what the politicians tend to do is they conflate and interchange and use all of these terms differently all of the time to keep us on our toes, and we never really know what we're referring to when we say it, and everything becomes interchangeable. It has to stop. People need to be educated. People have to educate themselves. Halsbury's Laws of England, there's even an online version of it as well. If you Google it, it's all available online. They stopped teaching this stuff in the 1970s, around the time Ted Heath signed what he signed. And you know what I'm referring to. Why? I don't want anybody to know about it because I know all of these laws could put a stop to it. I was made aware of a case. I can't tell you what it is because it's a live case and I don't want to jeopardize what's going on. It's important. But what I can tell you is the government were using the Bill of Rights in their own defense. So once you acknowledge the Bill of Rights exists, it opens up the whole gauntlet. So that is where I am. I hope I've broken that down a little bit more than an emotional post on YouTube. It's a bit like text messages, isn't it? Where you text something and people think, what's he going on about? So just think, learn, look, research. And people will wake up. People are waking up all over the place. And it's really good to see. Now let's talk about the court case. I say I support Advance because of the way I see them, that platform that's going to move in and hopefully do something about it. But in the background of Advance, the right people need to get together at the right place and the right time. And as I've just demonstrated, showing you the law, the law books, you know, they need people in who know this stuff, who can guide members of parliament in the right place to vote on the right laws and void laws that we don't need. And it's convincing them to do so. On the 3rd to the 5th of November, just to remind everybody, Graham Moore is going to be in the court, Chester Crown Court, to do with the election petition brought under the Representation of the People Act between Sarah Pochin and Stephen Young. I'm going to try and get to Chester. Now, to understand what that's all about, it's very important that this video is looked at rigged elections. You can see that on my previous videos. And it's all about impropriety in that election, for one thing, and others too. Because they're so worried about that, there's this on the 16th of October, 10 in the morning, at the Royal Courts of Justice in London. Graham has got to go to court because there is an appeal against that trial that's been granted to try and stop it. Why? Why are they trying to stop it, I wonder? Anybody? Because they are very worried that Graham could win. And the implications of a win are very, very large indeed. You know, you could void the result. You could have the election run again. You could have a full individual ballot recount. And I mean a full individual ballot recount. All sorts of things. And they don't want that to happen. And what that will do is take away our right to free and fair elections. That's no good, is it? Anyway, I've waffled enough. I hope I've given you a bit of insight. Just to make you aware as well, in passing, talking to the Royal Courts of Justice, there's a picture of me and Noel Wilcox outside the Royal Courts of Justice. He WhatsApped me the other day and he said, we need to do a live so I can update everybody on what's going on with the ULEZ situation. I haven't messaged him back yet, but hopefully within the next few days, I'll get him on the channel and we can see what's going on there. Until then, I'm sure I'll be back tomorrow with something else. Thank you very much for listening. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. And as always, I look forward to talking to you soon. Toodaloo.